What about AI? Honestly, for me, I think that we've talked about this previously on episodes. AI is a tool. It's a hammer. And so if there are nails sticking out of the wood, yeah, I'm going to use that hammer. But if they're all nailed down and actually have a leaky toilet, I'm just using this as an example, I'm going to use that hammer. Point being is that I wouldn't, in my new tech business, try to force fit the hammer into whatever solution I was trying to solve, right? Start with the problem, start with the solution that you're trying to deliver for that problem, and then decide what tools are best for it. Maybe it's AI, maybe it's not. You do lose a little bit because as soon as you say AI powered on your website, or as soon as you change your URL from .com to .ai, you probably get a nice boost. But I think from just pure fundamentals, I wouldn't necessarily go out and force fit AI into it because, again, the goal would be to make things super, super simple. If AI doesn't solve the problem or make things simpler, then it's not going to be something I would want to focus on. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. Today, I am going to tell you my deepest, darkest secrets. No, just kidding. But what I am going to tell you is a little bit about just the things that I've been thinking over the past couple of weeks, months, years, honestly, ever since I started BluMortgage, which is to say, hey, if I were to do it all again, if I were to start a brand new mortgage tech business in Canada today, what would I think about? And this isn't going to be, my master list of ideas. Not that I really have a very big list at all. It's just going to be more about concepts, right? So what would be my principles? What would I think about? What would be very important to me based on all the lessons I've learned? So I break it down in a couple different ways, what I would serve, how I would market it, how I layer in AI. So if you are thinking about mortgage tech in Canada, maybe starting your own thing, I think you'll find a lot of value from this. We'll see you on the other side. Okay, so let's get right into it here. So it's, I think, a pretty cool topic. Obviously, something that I've thought a bunch about, just given the nature of I've been in BluMortgage in the mortgage industry for a long time. 7 years. Some folks that's maybe long, maybe others that's a bit shorter. But in any case, been in this tech game, talked to a ton of people, kind of heard from the best of the best. And so today's episode, as I mentioned in the intro, is all about, okay, what would I do if I started today a brand new tech company, I had a blank slate in front of me? What would I do? And I guess as a quick preface, this isn't about the best ideas out there, because honestly, it's not like I'm holding them back. I have a list of these amazing things that I'm going to be changing the world with. More so, this is going to be an episode about what are the concepts that I would think about, kind of given the lessons I learned, what would be the things that I would think about and want to aim towards, just as more of a framework. What would I want my mortgage tech to look and feel like, and how would it operate, and all these different types of things. So let's get right into it here. So I'm going to break it down in a couple different ways. The first way I'm going to talk about it is, okay, what is the product or service that I would be offering? So what I mean by that, okay, if I look at BluMortgage, that's the example I'm familiar with. Maybe some of the folks listening are, some aren't, but basically we are a CRM service. So what do we provide? Well, of course, we provide the software, right? A software where you can go in, you can log in, you go in there, you can see all your clients, you can see all the deals that you've done with those clients. And then based on the data that exists in there, you can do all sorts of fun things, automations, following up with clients, staying in touch with realtors, doing a bunch of reports. So that's the software itself. But that's not all we provide, right? So that's just the product, the login. But another huge thing that we provide is going to be next, the service of it, right? So for us and how we run our business, we don't just say, here it is, go have fun. We are very much involved in the training, how you get things done. We have a whole library. We run regular webinars to tell people how to use the system. We do calls pretty much 4 hours a day, an open call to say, hey, if you have questions, jump in, we'll help you out. So we have a huge, huge service component. And then the third thing we provide is integrations, right? So we do integrate with the major deal submission platforms out there, Velocity, Filogix, to name a couple. And that is part of the service as well. So while you're in the CRM, you see a list of your clients, that list can auto update based on what's happening in your deal submission platform. So that's what I mean by product or service. So now if I'm looking forward and I'm saying, hey, I'm starting a brand new thing today, what would be the nature of that product and service? So for starters, this is what I would say. I would say that it would be a super simple app, right? I think there's something so beautiful in simplicity where it does one, maybe two things, but it does it so, so, so well. Like it just nails it, it dials it in, and it does these one or two things extraordinarily well, right? So I think that would be the nature of it. So it's a good idea. I think for me, and when I think about it, I say, I'd love to just have one thing. When you have something that's much bigger, it becomes a Frankenstein, maybe. It's a whole bunch to support from a, customer service perspective. There's potential for maybe some downstream effects that you don't intend as these different features interact with each other. So the simple side of things is really, really nice. But the from that perspective, but the downside is, I think a lot of mortgage brokers out there, people, I think across any industry, don't want to have 1,000 different logins. Oh, is this a new tool, a new thing I got to figure out, a new this, a new that? So I think that the first thing that I would do as it relates to that is, make it super streamlined in terms of just like the onboarding, right? So I guess that's the next case. Simple in terms of just what it does, but also the onboarding. I would love to have it if I could wave my magic wand and say, hey, this is a tech tool that I'm making and leading today, where really that whole onboarding process is pretty smooth in that you can go to the website. I don't need to talk to anyone. I don't need to do anything. I can click get started. I can log in. Sometimes these services have to log in with Google or log in with Microsoft or log in. I've seen even log in with Facebook. I think that's a common one too. So log in with those types of things. And when you get in there, you're not waiting for someone to explain to you. It's not confusing when you come in. Hey, where do I need to go? It's very clear. It's impossible not to know what to do, right? I've come in and it's extremely clear. Are the series of steps or maybe just step that I need to take to really actually start getting value from the system. So that's the first thing. I want to reduce as much friction as possible. And transparently, I think that the human side of things, while it's good, provides a lot of that friction. And some of you out there might be saying, oh, that's a bad idea, Tom. I really do like that human touch. But I actually challenge that. I'd say, do you? Think about some tools that you use. Like I'll just say, I don't know, Facebook. I think a lot of people probably listening are on Facebook all the time or Instagram. Do you want to talk to someone at Facebook or Instagram? No, you don't. I mean, maybe you do. I don't even know if they let you do that. You don't want the human touch there. You just want the platform to do what it's going to do. And it was so easy to sign up. You didn't need a human to kind of walk you through it and say where to click. It was just so intuitive that actually having a human involved in that process would have slowed things down. If Facebook would have said, Zuckerberg would have said, hey, do you know what? Before you can click around and start messaging your clients and posting photos or whatever you might want to do, we need to have an onboarding call with you. Be like, no way. And it wouldn't make sense. And so that's what I would want to go for, right? Is something where it makes so much sense that it would, you wouldn't even need that human. You wouldn't want that human inserted into the process. And then in terms of, I guess, okay, the other side of things, still that doesn't really solve the thing of, oh God, there's this new tool that I got to remember the login for and all this and that. But again, I just do the same analogy. Think of the tools, maybe they're more social media tools. If I had to kind of pick a category, things like Facebook, Instagram, and then like when TikTok came around, I don't know if people are TikTokers. I'm not personally, but I know a lot of my friends and colleagues are. That wasn't like, oh God, another platform. Right? People are excited for it. Right? People wanted to go in. It was a little bit addicting. It was a new experience. It was a new type of thing. So again, in mortgage tech, are you going to have a social platform that's going to compete with TikTok and these types of things? Probably not. But why was TikTok not another thing that you rolled your eyes at and another tool that you had to kind of learn how to use? Well, I think because of the things I just said, it was very easy to adopt. But also on an ongoing basis, it just provides value very, very quickly, right? So it provides that value almost instantaneously, right? So then your brain starts to get wired to say, hey, this is a place where I get value. And then every time you go back to it, there's new hits of value that come to it. And so it no longer becomes a burden to be using these types of tools. It almost becomes an excitement. It would be my dream. And now I am really dreaming. So, maybe I got to come back down to earth a little bit. But it would be my dream, when you're in between emails and you're getting bored, you go and you open Facebook and see what's going on or TikTok and watch some videos. It'd be my dream to have my app on that list. It's like, I'm bored of my emails right now. Let's go open this app and see what it's doing, right? And I think it's, the mindset that probably people have right now. It's like, well, those are social apps, those are fun apps. But for me personally, one of the things on my list, just as an example, as I go through, if I'm bored or whatever, as I look and I open up the analytics of my business, right, and say, hey, how are we growing? That's exciting to me. Hey, how much are we making this month? And so is this going to be an analytic tool? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. But I think that what I'm revealing is that within business, within more mortgage business, I think there are exciting things, and it's about tapping into that. And so people are excited to interact with this part of their business, right? And I'd want to kind of interact with it in that way. And then another thing is, if I'm just kind of boring all those lessons, is also making it very mobile friendly. I mean, I think everyone's talking about the AI wave, and I'll talk about that in a sec as it relates to this. But let's not forget the mobile wave that still we're very much in the middle of, I think, where, you go on a subway. I live in Toronto, go on a streetcar, everyone's staring at literally everyone's staring at their phone, right? And again, so if you can be part of that almost neural pathway, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, where along this path that you're taking through your phone, one of the things that you're checking is this app, this mortgage tech app. Again, that's training your brain where it's like, I need a break. I'm excited. I want to interact with this piece of technology. And so, yeah, I guess just to kind of wrap it up, on this side of things of kind of the product or service, that's what I'd want to do. And then on an ongoing basis, how do I improve the app? Because a lot of people look at it and say, hey, how you improve app is you add features, you add features, you add features. I take this lesson. I read a book somewhere where I don't know what book it was, so I'm not even going to try to quote it. But it was basically saying, hey, every year, this is like some Japanese guy who had a Zen garden. My goal with my Zen garden, right? These, calming gardens that it's very common, I think, in Japan or I don't know where. These Zen gardens, every year I'm going to try and make it simpler, right? Which sounds like such a counterintuitive thought. And it's like, isn't simple easier? I think the answer is no. I think actually simple is very, very, very hard. It's Mark Twain. I think this is misattributed to him, or if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. Simple is hard. And I think that would be the goal with this. It's so tempting to go out, and I've made this mistake. And I think it's a lesson I learned the hard way, where it's like, let's do new things. Let's do a new integration. Let's do a new this. Let's do a new that. When sometimes the best thing you can do is turn down those dials and deliver the same impact in terms of value, but just do it in a more streamlined ways, less clicks, less mental overhead, because I think that's how you get to the TikTok levels or whatever over here, right? Because everything is a cost benefit, right? So if you can establish that benefit and say, hey, there's a really good benefit doing that, and then over time, you're just slowly turning down the cost, the mental overhead, the amount of clicks, whatever's involved to achieve that benefit, hopefully you eventually get to that point where the scales tip, and then it's a snowball, right? It's a runaway train where it just becomes a thing that all my users would want to use more and more. So that's on the product service side of things. And again, I'm just dreaming here. A lot of people might be listening saying, that's a cool idea, but good luck trying to find it. And I think that's well warranted, that type of sentiment. But I'm going to keep going here. The next thing is like, okay, so you have this really simple app. That's great. How are you going to market it? How would you sell it? I think, again, what I would do is I would make it pretty much free, right? For the most part. And then how would I make money? It'd be freemium, right? I mean, I think it's a tried and true. I think maybe even if I'm, going along the theme of this post of copying some of these social media platforms, I think that's a lot of what they do, right? I guess they're more advertising, so less freemium. But point being, where most of the interactions, I'd say 90 to 95% of the way people use the app, it's going to be free. You're going to be able to get in there, not pay a dime, sign up in a minute and start getting value, right? No credit card, no this, no that. You can just start going, right? It's about adoption. It's about using it. And, I think I would absolutely do that. And then where you'd actually end up making money is that 5 to 10%, right? So 5 to 10% of features probably used by 5 or 10% of the users. They become more than happy to pay it, because they are those super users that are taking it to the max. They understand the value and they're willing to do it. But the other 95% who maybe don't see that value, I'm not going to twist their arm. I'm not going to say, hey, you know what, you can use it for a week, but then you got to kind of make a decision here. Let people use it forever, because there's a ton of value in just that adoption. And this leads to my next point, which is how will I actually market the thing? I think I would be so heavy on referral-based marketing. I think in this industry, mortgage specifically, but I think any group of professionals in a country, it's so much referral based, right? So the value that you would get from those 90 to 95 people who aren't paying you, what you can get from them is just simply their adoption and the fact that they are using this tool and probably telling their friends about it. And I would even probably set it up where, well, first of all, I'd make it extremely frictionless to refer people, right? So I think if you remember back in the day, Uber was really good at it. You get a code, you could just like text it to your friend instantly. They'd click it, they'd instantly get $5 off. I think Dropbox did something similar. So make it completely frictionless to be able to refer and do that sort of thing. That goes hand in hand with being frictionless with the sign up, right? Because in order to almost attribute that and say, hi, I'm going to refer my friend, that friend needs to then get that text message or whatever it is and then be able to instantly sign up. So have a very frictionless process along there. And then I would even probably layer in some gamification, right? I think like, I don't know, MPP is the one that comes to mind that does this, where they say, hey, for anybody who has MPP, we do a draw. I don't know the exact mechanism here, but basically have a trip at the end of the year, right? I think I do something like that. Maybe not a trip because maybe I'm not making as much money as MPP on their financial products, but I do something like that where I think you can squeeze a lot more out of it, where you can actually give people social validation to say, hey, Tom is a top referrer. He's very well connected in the industry. Here's a badge, or here's a token, or here's an actual, something with actually monetary value that we're giving Tom for all the amazing things he does to leverage his amazing network and spread the word about this app. And so I think that would be very much so it of referral based. And then trade shows. I do think industry events are very important. Again, I would make it so that if someone visits my booth, they can sign up right on the spot. They don't need to take a pamphlet, go home, think about it. They sign up right there. And if they sign up right there, they get, again, a pretty good reward to do that. And, it can kind of grease the tires that way. And then the last thing that I would do with all of this is I'd say, hey, once, adoption really builds up, starts to go, I would then turn around and go to brokerages and say, hey, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Broker owner, you have 20 agents. 15 of them are using it. 3 of them really want to use these premium features, but they're hitting walls, and they've, hit these paywalls before, right? Where you try to hit a feature and it says, hey, do you want to upgrade? We would track that and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Brokerage owner, these people really want these, but they aren't really willing to pay. Maybe you as a broker owner, we could sign a master contract. So all of your agents get these paywall features. It looks really good on you that you're providing value, and I'm going to give you a great deal to do it, right? Just to do that master license. And again, I think that would be a very interesting way to unlock new sources of revenues, having these more corporate deals. So anyways, I think that's, in a business, what is it? It's, the product that you're delivering and how you're going to get in front of people. There's obviously a lot of other things that go with it, but those are the exciting things for me. Those are the things that keep me up at night. I think those are the toughest things about a tech business. And so those are the areas I want to focus on this episode. Before I wrap up, everyone's going to say, well, what about AI? What about AI? Honestly, for me, I think that we talked about this previously on episodes. AI is a tool. It's a hammer. And so if there are nails sticking out of the wood, yeah, I'm going to use that hammer. But if they're all nailed down and actually have a leaky toilet, I'm just using this as an example, I'm going to use that hammer. Point being is that I wouldn't, in my new tech business, try to force fit the hammer into whatever solution I was trying to solve, right? Start with the problem, start with the solution that you're trying to deliver for that problem, and then decide what tools are best for it. Maybe it's AI, maybe it's not. You do lose a little bit because as soon as you say AI powered on your website, or as soon as you change your URL from .com to .ai, you probably get a nice boost. But I think from just pure fundamentals, I wouldn't necessarily go out and force fit AI into it because, again, the goal would be to make these things super, super simple. If AI doesn't solve the problem or make things simpler, then it's not going to be something I would want to focus on. Bit of a contrarian take there, but again, it's about these fundamentals for me. And I think that if you chase the shiny object, you often get burned, right? So focus on the problem first. With that said, if I'm now going a bit further from not just a tech tool, but a tech company that I'm building, I would lean heavily, and we already are here at BlueRoot, on AI for all my back office stuff. Accounting, bookkeeping, legal, blah, 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 you name it, all that stuff. I see no reason why that couldn't be AI powered. The leverage is there. You're still going to have to know what to ask these GPTs and different things like that. But the need for a full back office staff, admin staff, all these different, an outsourced bookkeeper, this, that, I don't think I do that. I would avoid that as long as possible. I would use ChatGPT, and I think you get a ton of leverage with that. So that's where I would lean in on AI, is more on the internal side of things. So I'll leave it there. That's just my, I guess, rambling as someone who thinks about this stuff maybe far too much than I should. But, these are kind of the concepts that I find interesting. Of course, every day we're trying to incorporate them more and more into BluMortgage. But I think just, I have some fun. If I have a canvas that's already painted and we're, touching up the edges here. But if I had that blank canvas, that's how I'd want to focus. So maybe this was interesting to you, maybe not. If you have a different take on it, or if you disagree with something I said, please leave it in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.